they had a vision, they had a passion, but they had a problem. Oh, well, COVID obviously hurt the industry completely. You have to service the people.
Yeah. 100%. أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We'd love to welcome you to another Safi Bros podcast. We have a dear brother to us. 22-year-old dear brother. 22 years of relationships with his brother we've had, alhamdulillah, and a blessed relationship we've had. He is our brother, aka Frank, but he's really known as Fahim. Fahim, the man of the events world. And his name is Fahim Rusitofski. He is the guy who started the Australian Mobile Food Vendors Group, which is a huge group, mashallah, that caters Australia-wide and also manages quite a substantial amount of technology in the events game and also allocation of vendors nationwide. Mashallah, also he been an instigator of managing major events such as the Australian Open, three-quarters of the air show, from what I recall, can cater up to 50 sites by himself at a single time with 50 different food trucks and sort of food sites nationally. And also has helped a lot of people in the food game to get into the food truck world. We'd love to welcome our dear brother, Frank. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you, Bruno?
Welcome, brother.
Wow, that was a bit of an intro. I'm not sure if I see it all that way, but thank you. Appreciate it.
MashaAllah, Alex. So we go back quite far, but I think before we met, I think we want to know the young Frank who started and we know you quite well, and I would love for our listeners to sort of have a real feel of your upbringing, being a mashallah a Muslim professional in your field, and how it started for you and how you sort of grew through the ranks. And I recall you telling me that you used to help your dad in the food vendor MCG.
Oh yeah. Well, my dad was
how
my
old
driver.
were you? How old were you then?
Oh well, going back, I think.
Were you born here, Frank?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
When did dad and mum come?
Mum and dad came over here. I remember he was probably about 16 years old. He lived in
16.
Footscray. My mother lived in Preston, and he'd ride his bike all the way from Footscray after work to see her and meet her when he was engaged. So,
SubhanAllah.
my driver's always been my father. He was an amazing man, and I just love being with him. So what drove me to, I guess, my career path was just the fact that I wanted to be with him. So on the weekends, he'd take his truck out, and occasionally, I guess, when he could, he obviously went through a number of periods where he worked through as a boner, and then he went to become a chef at a hospital. But when he was a chef, he saw ice cream trucks, and he had a passion for the ice cream trucks. So he had his truck, but wasn't really working it as much. It was one of those things. He got injured at work, and he didn't use it for some time, but it sat there. And every time I'd come home, I'd see this truck in the driveway, and I think, oh, I got an ice cream truck in my driveway. It was
How old were you then, Frank?
Oh, I would have been about 6 or 7, I would say. So by the time I got to the age of, I would say 9 or 10, maybe it was closer to 11 when I was actually going on transport myself. But my dad would leave early, so I'd miss him. So I'd come back. If it was a weekday, sometimes I'd actually go out, and back then the tram system along Plenty Road was quite convenient. So
That's right.
I'd get onto I'd go out, get onto the tram, and I'd go all the way to the city, get off at the art centre, because that's where all the vendors used to trade. There was 10 vendors that would trade illegally at the time because there was no permits, so you couldn't trade legally in the city. So all these vendors were out there trying to, I guess, hustle a little and trade along the street in front of the art centre. So what would happen is there'd be between 10 or 15 trucks on St Kilda Road trading beside each other.
Wow.
At that time.
All ice cream then?
They were all doing the same thing. That's what baffled me. There was actually occasionally a couple of vendors that did some donuts, like they had a bigger truck. So they would have, a bus-style operation, and they would be doing some donuts and some other stuff. So they were always good to have
There were
nearby.
two main product lines, weren't they, really? Donuts and ice cream were the only product lines in the sort of
back in those days,
fast food world.
For some reason, everyone was doing the same thing. And funny enough, they were all just probably as busy as each other, which was odd at the time. I'd see everyone and they'd be quite consistently busy. But my job initially was I'd go out there and I just love being with him. So I initially stood at the front when I first started going there, just talked to him, and he was such a beautiful soul. He just drawed you into him. So I'd go out there, and then I'd stay outside and meet some of the other vendors as I was there. Now, back in those days, there were certain laws and regulations that obviously these vendors weren't allowed to trade there legally. So I would sit outside, and I got to meet the entertainers out there. There's obviously a lot of street entertainers as well.
Wow.
So they were there every day, and they'd collect some coins at the end of each show, and it was good actually seeing their artistic talent. I actually quite enjoyed that. But while being out there, I got to meet a lot of these vendors. And they'd always be talking to me, and I'd be listening to Dad's conversation with them, and I loved just listening to the conversation of the banter of the food truck world. I was actually quite excited by it. I enjoyed being there because they'd always give me some advice or some free donuts or something along those lines.
SubhanAllah.
But what I did, I because I was there for so long, I actually saw some times when these council officers would come along and book some of these people and shut these people down.
So what was the law? What was the process there? They just came, shut them down? What would they give them a fine?
Well, you'd get a fine.
Which was
in a couple of $100 back in those days.
Wow.
But the legalities around it was basically if you shut your shutter and you weren't seen as trading, basically parked there, they weren't allowed to fine you. So I don't encourage illegal trading. I'm not. But this was the time when people didn't have an option. There was no permits given by council. And this eventually drove councils to actually issue some permits. So at the time, the vendors had no other choice but to trade there illegally because they weren't being hurt by local government. So, anyway, as we went along, we started see the bylaw officers come along in certain types of vehicles. And I recall these vehicles, they always have an emblem on the door, or they'd have certain characteristics that I could pin from a mile away. It was just like, for me, they just stood out.
You were the scout.
I just saw them, and I saw that's a threat to everyone that is nice to me here at the moment. So I'll be outside anyway, looking at the entertainer, or obviously speaking to Dad or whatever it may be. I jump in occasionally when you need a little bit of help, but I think I had more profits than help. But but I had an eye for these guys, and they actually enjoyed, I guess, me being around or trying to. I guess
Tom and Jerry, the chase.
Yeah, it was a bit of a chase. But anyway, I could pin these guys from miles. So I see him drive past, and there was one particular bylaw officer. He was quite ruthless. He was the guy that everyone was scared of. And I'd see him drive past, and I think, oh, that's him. I think his name, funny enough, was Frank at the time. It might have been Frank. Anyway, he'd park like a kilometre away. So he'd give me more. So I had to walk down a fair bit to see if it was actually, I was sure it was him or not. So one particular day, he thought I'd go along with this. So he's walking down, and I see him walking. I just realised when he was come close to me. So I thought, I got to run from here if I'm going to meet him. So I start running, and he starts running as well. So we're having a race to the truck. And he was good about it. Funny enough, he didn't find anyone on the day. But I do remember that. It was a bit of fun.
SubhanAllah. So you grew up in that game, in that world of doing like street food at the start.
Yeah.
And SubhanAllah, I met somebody during that event game. SubhanAllah, I met a really old guy who was in his like 70s or 80s.
Mr. Whippy.
And he was telling me how he was worth it for him to do. He used to go around St Kilda, and it was worth it for him to do ice cream because the fine was so minute that it didn't care, because he was making more money through the ice cream truck, driving around and stopping in all these places and making money, and still he always had that sort of fine as part of his rent.
His cost.
His cost. It's amazing how, and SubhanAllah, we've heard about this before.
Yeah. So there were some people that had that mentality. I think it was some that obviously just didn't want to be caught and be fined.
What was the nationalities in the industry then?
There was a lot of Greeks, I would say. A lot of Greeks at the time. There was Italians as well. A few Australians. We were probably one of a few Albanians.
Albanians, I think.
I think they came in later in the piece after that, but after we were sort of in the industry, relatives sort of got involved. But but yeah, it was an interesting time. It was a fun time actually.
SubhanAllah.
It's like yesterday, eh?
It's funny enough. I'm just talking about it. It brings so many memories back.
Memories,
and they, funny enough, I ran into one of these ice cream vendors, 30 years later. And he remembered me, and he said, "Yeah, this and this and this is this. It was amazing back then what you did." He remembered everything, and it was like he was very grateful for the times. Back then, it must have meant so much to him. I didn't realise till after that time when we were able to introduce vendors to Rod Lavery, because that was nearby that precinct. So the vendors used to trade outside that space. Now we actually legally trade there, and we invited these vendors back. So recently the team has sort of put out an EOI to get an ice cream vendors in actually, and they recall like it was yesterday. It was now. He's obviously his son-in-law is working in that position, but I ran into him, and he was grateful that we actually are legally allowed to trade out of that location.
So take us back to young Fahim, his ambitions. Well,
Which school did you go to?
I was at Preston East. I was in Preston East Primary for a while. Then I went to Preston East High, and then that turned into Reservoir District Secondary College. But at the time, I was obviously constantly still working with Dad, focusing on school to a certain degree, and but for some reason, I just had a passion for for that space, the food truck space. I would actually put in applications. I'd follow Dad just to help him out. So I'd be filling out all the applications, sending him off, signing him off, answering phone calls. So my dad goes, "You probably need a phone" at the time. So I would answer some phone calls in between periods occasionally with sort of application processes. And I'd actually go into these meetings with Dad. Dad would take me along. Like I wasn't saying much at the time, but he'd always take me along to some of these meetings. And this funny enough, once I started working for myself, I ran to one gentleman. He'd heard that Dad had passed after that point, so this gentleman, he was controlling a lot of the events, and this was at the actual showgrounds. And I went to introduce myself. I said, this is who I am. This is what we do. And he said to me, "I know who you are." I said, "Really? I don't think we've met before." He said, "You used to come in every time with your dad to have the meetings. I've known you for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Or 10 years at the time, whatever it was."
SubhanAllah.
He said, and looking back now, I think that's what Dad was sort of saying, because he saw my passion in it. So he was introducing me to a lot of these people indirectly. So
SubhanAllah.
And I was always happy to go along with him. So yeah.
Amazing.
So take us through that. When did you sort of make up your mind to go, you know what, this is the game for me. I want to do this.
Well, it was probably in high school when you're trying to work out your career path, and you think you're going to go to uni, and I remember picking accounting in school in year 11 or 12, and the reason for that, I thought I need to know how to work out the books here of what I'm doing, because I'm managing these people. I need to figure out how what taxes have we got to pay, and what's due, and how much money is coming in, because I always would write on a ledger. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I can do something in economics. And at the time, I was looking at, designing a food truck. Also, I had a picture of one and designed one. And my brother actually gave me some insight into, because he was the building part. So he was drawing, and he was back then, he was into sort of that rock and roll theme. So he had some ideas, and I thought, okay, maybe we can do something around, neon style. And we drawed up this truck. Again, I said my dad was always the one to really drive a vision. So he was okay. That's what you want to do. So I got to that point, and I thought, okay, do I keep going with the schooling after year 12, or do I continue down the passion? And funny enough, I was getting a lot of inquiries for events we were doing. And I remember the time my dad said, you need to start a company of your own now. I said, "Dad, look, I'm happy with the structure. I want to support, I'm happy to work with what we're doing, build what we've got." He said, no, it's okay. We'll do that. We'll do that. But you need to start your own entity. So
how many trucks did you have then, and what contracts did you have?
My dad had, I think he had one or two ice cream trucks at the time. He had a food trailer that we were building, and at the time we built a trailer that we were doing this one we were designing. So it was a few ice cream trucks and a couple of food outlets.
Oh, wow. And where were they working?
We had
permanent sites or just events?
I think it was mainly just in the city that we were just sort of trading, and then we would do. I think at the time we did have one site at the MCG,
yes,
which was great. It was a great place to sort of be during the footy. So we were.
Was that a pay? Did you have to pay for that even then, or was it just trade as well?
Back then it was, because it was split up between council and the
private.
Yeah. So it was it was a regular tender that went out that we were successful with.
Okay.
And I remember the training at the back of the Ponsford stand around the back there, and I remember the kids selling records. They were great. They
Because subhanAllah, my first job was at the MCG doing crepes.
Oh wow!
There was a crepe van there.
Yeah.
Back then, when I think because I went to St. Joe's,
Yep.
North Fitzroy, and the actual owner of the
16,
crepes
17 you were then, yeah.
came to the school and said to the young kids who would like a job, and I put my hand up.
Yeah.
So I started working at the MCG for I think a year and a half doing crepes
Wow. Was it
in
inside?
a big bus. No, outside.
Oh, outside.
It
Okay.
was a big bus. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a few vendors that were trading there over those years, and I remember Alfie used to be a donut truck out the front there, and
SubhanAllah.
it was great.
There was a lot of concerts back then there too.
Yeah.
I remember doing John Bon Jovi,
Yeah.
things like that were going. It wasn't only about footy then. It was like there was a lot of concerts because the MCG was the hub. There was no other stadium.
Yeah, correct. There was always events on, and it was competitive space. I mean, you got your little site, and there's always another vendor down the road, and it was, so yeah, it was a case of everyone sort of competing for it, and I said we'd help out on the weekends, and
SubhanAllah.
that was.
So you started to end up setting up your own entity with your dad?
Yeah. So we set up my entity. I think it was a case. It was just there I was training initially with it. It was more, working towards what that was, and the company that he had, and I didn't really understand why he wanted me to do that at the time. I was just like, okay, whatever. We're still going to work together. It's I'm happy doing with what I'm doing, and he was always fair and reasonable. So, yeah, it was a case of just working through that, and then we designed this truck, and then I said to Dad, we'll build it. So we built this truck, and he said, okay, we'll build it along, and we got it going, and we did an event, and it was dead the first time we did it. We spent all this money on thinking myself, wow, this is a crazy concept. Why are we doing this?
What was the van? Was it a rock and roll?
It was a rock and roll theme.
What kind of food?
It was burgers and chips, but it was more themed. So our staff was all in the, the bow ties and white. And
okay,
it was a 60s,
Yeah, so the rock and
theme,
roll
50s,
time.
60s theme.
Yeah,
So
nice.
it was actually a beautiful looking outlet. And funny enough, we had someone that come to that event where we were dead at. They said, we really want this truck to go to Canberra. It's in Canberra. It's an event in Canberra.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm like, we're not even figuring out what we're doing here, let alone go to Canberra. And I mentioned to Dad, I said, they want us to go to Canberra, Dad. What do we do? He said,
Wow.
go. If you want to go, go. You don't even know if you don't go.
Mm.
I said, oh, it's risky, I said, I said, but they're prepared to not charge us anything to go.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Because we were hesitant. So they said, you won't have to pay. As long as you do. And funny enough, they honored their word for a number of years. They never charged us anything because they just wanted the truck down there.
Oh, wow.
They want to feed the patrons, really.
Yeah. So it was the case.
They're the best events.
Yeah, we tried that out, and that was great. It was a great opportunity to go out there, and it was a successful event for us. So it was great.
Wow.
So it was your first successful event?
I would say
you
it was
personally,
I remember it was one that stood out. So when I was working with Dad, we went out there and it was awesome. So
Subhanallah.
yeah, it was quite successful. So it was worth all the effort of going there. That was
Yeah,
the
people
thing.
don't understand how hard it is to move a takeaway shop, really,
Yeah.
from one state to another, even, and just
Yeah.
staffing,
Yeah.
everything else, the compliancing in different areas to be compliant and all that kind of stuff. So
Amazing,
Fahim
amazing.
is growing up, got himself in the game, and so what you see after you're 12? That's it. You left. No.
No, I never went to uni. I never
went to uni?
I never continued with the school because I had that passion. For me, I actually knew. I felt like this is the way you got
This
to
is
go.
my calling.
Like it wasn't really something that I had to really think much about. It
Was there any sort of stigma around that for you? People saying, "Oh, what's wrong with you? You're normal.
You're better than that.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but I think my passion. People saw my passion. Like
Oh wow,
I think,
That's awesome.
I think my brothers and sisters used to tease me about it occasionally about the trucks. I'd actually enjoy it a lot, and it was one thing that it drove me. And I felt like that's the path you need to go down because I was so already involved in it. The only thing that probably got me thinking twice about it was the death of passing of my father, where I thought, okay, what are you doing now? Because I had the entity, but never really executed. It was more about just going with the flow and working with what Dad's direction was.
So how long before Dad passed after you 12 so that you
Oh, he
work
was
in the business?
I was working probably till 23 22, I think it was.
22, so about a couple of years, 3-4 years.
Yeah. So I was working in the business, obviously, since I was a lot younger. But as you know, I got my truck license at 8 and 19 because back then you needed to have a vehicle license. You couldn't get it any sooner.
Wow.
So at 19, I was driving the truck and assisting him and working through it with him.
So you were capable running your own events at 19, 20, 19, 18?
Yeah, I was driving to and from events and assisting him where I can, and then looking at, doing those applications for him and working at those events. I was young then as well, obviously still going out and.
Not a lot of people appreciate the growth that takes place because we're in events, and you're well aware, Frank. We got into events later on in our careers, but a lot of our staff that actually worked with us and supported us, they really say that the Fiesta days, we used to call them the Fiesta Trabe or the upbringing. It really makes good men, strong men. Because you need to have a lot of skill sets in the events game where it toughens you up. Did you feel that? Did you?
100%. I think it was more of a case. One of the things that really, I guess, touched me one day. I was actually out shopping with. I think I was by myself, and a girl came up to me and she tapped me on the back. She said, "Frank, how you going?" Didn't know who. At that particular moment in time, I didn't know who it was. And she said, "Julie, you remember me? I looked for you." I said, "Oh, how you going? How you been?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm great. I'm great." I said, "What are you doing with yourself now?" And she said, "I'm a lawyer." I said, "Wow, congratulations. Well done. Well done." She said, "But I learned so much. I owe you a lot," she said. And I said, "Why? Well, you don't owe me anything." And she said, "I learned so much when I was working for you. I learned to deal with difficult people. I learned to deal with drunks who'd come up there. You teach me how to deal with those situations. I learned to deal with money. I transact. I was counting my float and money." So she said, "Oh, you so much?" I said, "No, you don't." I said, "That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that you're doing so well." So you get, I guess, there's a lot of reward you see from the growth of others.
Yes,
and
100%.
I've always enjoyed hearing a good story or a good outcome from people I'm associated with, and even the team that we've, over the years that we've developed. Seeing where they're at now is beautiful to see some of the stories.
I mean,
I'm a
we can testify to that actually because. We were actually at an event with Frank. I think it was the Eid Festival, and I think it was the first time we did chips. And I think we just got
we did not know how to turn on a fryer.
Yeah,
we knew to buy a Fry Master because
that was our food van. We just that's right. So the story goes Ramadan time. It was always Ramadan. We used to do things. SubhanAllah. We bought a van that looked like it needed to be
chucked in the bin.
I remember we called Frank and we said, "Frank, come to the warehouse. We want to show you what we just bought." And I remember Frank specifically walking in,
he was laughing at us.
And we were we were trying to build these windows that opened and closed. I remember.
And we were the rollers that rolled the thing out.
SubhanAllah, at that time, as they say, when you're starting a business, you're short for cash and I remember Frankie, we got him in and I could see his face with disappointment thinking, what are these boys got up to? They should have asked me beforehand. And I think the best advice he gave us then, and I always tell people the same advice, is that, you can cut corners in infrastructure, but don't cut in your equipment. Buy brand new because when you need it, the thing needs to last. And I think I remember because we bought brand new Fry Masters then was $5,000 or $4,000 thinking Frank gave us some bad advice. Because we just spent about $10,000 on fryers at the time. And
that's a
lot of money.
And we put a garland hot plate, like the best.
Yeah, and we're like, Frankie, I think gave us the wrong advice. And we're like, we don't even know how to turn these things on, He gave us the great advice. And then subhanAllah, the first event we did was with you at the Eid Festival in Broadmeadows. And I asked you, Frank, can you come show me how to light this thing up? And you started laughing. And that day we killed it with chips. So
we killed it with chips. We're going to keep up.
We're like, why the hell haven't we been doing chips for a long time?
Because we started. One of our first events was an event we did for Frank.
Yes.
Which was, and I recall very well, was a open day for a football club up in towards Frankston or something.
No, it was Richmond Football Club.
No, it wasn't. It was the Melbourne club. Oh, St Kilda. That's right, St Kilda.
Yes,
that's right. It was St Kilda Football Club, and you had the open day. You were organising the open day, and we went in there with our old yellow van.
That's right.
With a trailer, and we set up a corn store.
That's right.
That we bought off Ibrahim.
Because
Ibrahim used to do work for you.
Yeah.
Hanallah, and then we bought his setup. That was like the first in for us.
Yeah,
Our first setup was a corn marquee that we bought off
That's
this
right.
guy that he wanted to get out of the game. Remember?
Yeah, 100%. I remember. It's funny that story you bring up about the fryers because it was probably 3 months ago. The exact same thing happened to me. It's funny you bring that up, where a new vendor coming to the industry, and one thing we first do, we try to give people as much time as we can when they first start out, till we try to figure out their motives and understand what their objectives are. A lot of people in the industry come into it to take what they can and go on to the next thing, or weren't serious about committing to the industry. So it's a good platform to start a new business concept.
Yes.
Trial your concept before you go into other pastures. But we're very conscious of the fact we don't want cowboys coming in and ruining it for everyone else. But anyway, this gentleman's got a pretty good intention, I believe. And he called me. He was at an event that we actually sent him to. And funny enough, I was actually very close by.
SubhanAllah.
I don't know, I just happened to be there at the time. I was near the area. So he said, look, I've got a problem, Frank. I'm a little bit embarrassed calling you about it. I said, no, you can call me about it. It's fine. What's the problem? He said, I don't know how to light the fryer. I said, I'll be there very soon. I'll see how we go. If I can't send someone, I'll see what happens. We'll see if we can get someone. Within 10 minutes, I'm there because I'm just around the corner.
SubhanAllah.
And he was baffled. He couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And he had people queuing up. He's unable to serve them.
Wow.
So I go in there and I said to him, look, I'll just show you how it's done. Look, this is your gas. He's got a perfectly compliant truck. He's got everything in the right spot, but he just hadn't used it before.
Yeah.
He's just taken on the business. And so anyway, we went in there and showed him. And he said to me, look, I'm never, ever going to forget this, Frank. Because you mentioned it. I can't believe you're one of the first guys to help me start. So I was grateful to be in that position to help him. But I'm just saying it's one of those journeys that you remember because you guys mentioned all that after all these years. And I asked you once before, so why do you keep telling me that story? It's like, it wasn't a big deal at the time.
One thing that was interesting, because for us, going into the events game, 2 Lebanese boys, doing contracts off the Melbourne Showgrounds and starting to do the My Music Bowl, we realised no one wants to help. We realised no one wants to give you an opportunity. But you could see from your sincerity that you understood that the rizq was from God.
Yeah.
The more I help, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will support me and give me, and which mashallah, you are probably the most biggest event caterer in Victoria and Australia.
Nobody can.
But one thing that I loved about you is that you were always there to, if you could help, you would.
Yeah.
Like, we've had situations with food vendors, they're turning gas bottles off instead of helping you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you were always there to support, even with bread or whatever situation, which is fantastic because not many people in the game are willing to even support you, because other people might think, oh, if I show him how to use the fryer, he's taking away from my sales, because you were selling chips at that time, I remember. So it's that mentality that,
Magic of giving.
Yeah, subhanAllah, not many people do it, especially in that game. That game was ruthless, like you're saying, very competitive.
Yeah, at that time it was very competitive.
Do you know what I mean? So you had some...
I think, I remember a time when I was just coming out running things myself, just sort of new to the space because Dad's passed on. So everyone's looking at what the business is going to do when Dad's not there.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I know, I tend to sense that some of the people, not all, some people were really good. Some people obviously don't want the best outcomes. Yeah. So I remember doing an event, and this was the catalyst, I guess, for us to do a lot more at that point. I did an event, and the gentleman next to me came to me. He said, this is a young guy trying to come in and trying to, I guess, get some approval from some of the older players, I guess, or people that are a bit more established, and knowing the situation with Dad and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to just keep the peace. So he said to me, the job's gone. It's been quite busy. We did quite well. And he said to me, so how much are you declaring? And prior to the event, I always went to the event organizer saying, I'm happy to pay these fees. This is what it is. And it was a bit high at the time. So I said, look, we'll negotiate something better. Are you happy with that? I'll make sure, with the way we operate is we're pretty transparent. You'll get everything that's there. So, and at the time it was one of the cases that everyone was sort of had this perception of not being totally honest with yourselves.
Yeah. Manipulate.
Yeah. But my dad always taught me to never do that.
Never do that ever.
Never do that. So I was confronted with it because I'm trying to get the acceptance that, you sort of need to keep the peace with everybody. And he's put me in the spot. And I didn't say much and I walked away. Then I thought about it. I thought, no, I'm going to tell him. before he submits, because then it's not fair. I can't say to him that I'm doing something different. I said to him, listen, I've already told the person I'm going to give him every cent that he's entitled to. So I would recommend you do the same, but it's your decision. I'm not prepared to not disclose my sales.
Yeah.
He said, you're silly. You got no idea. He said, good luck.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So I declared my sales. I'm not sure what he did, to be honest. But I know after that point, these people started giving me more and more work. And I guess the reputation of the honesty that we're prepared to, and like we always had the mentality of negotiate hard. I think we probably discussed it a few times with you guys.
Yes.
Negotiate hard when you go. Be prepared to give what you can, and then once you're there, you got to honor what you've said.
Exactly, 100%.
So I think a lot of people appreciated that, because every time we'd get offered more and more work after that point. So
100%.
And it was drivers. They were drivers. They were saying, "Oh, we got you here, and we got you here, and you should go up to this event." So.
And as that honesty always opens up doors, subhanAllah, you know. It's opened up so many doors for us in the event. That was the catalyst for our growth in the events game, you know. Because mashallah, I think you were the largest guy in the food world, the food truck world, and we took the path in the events game in the marquee world. Like we
always looked at because we had so much infrastructure already. How are you going to spend another 80, 70 grand on more infrastructure? And the biggest conundrum we were feeling is like, we can never sell this business because you're only as good as your contracts. But, you know, you're knee in deep now. So how do you know, all your relationships that you've built, how can you really sell that? Because tomorrow that contract might not come.
And it's amazing. It was an amazing game. Like we got into the event space as a sort of a double-edged sword, because we had equipment. We were buying and selling it. First, I think we first started buying and selling commercial catering equipment. And we were buying secondhand and selling them. And we went and bought a reception in the first place, and we sold all the gear out of it. We kept some stuff for we used that in the events game. And then we noticed that the event game just went like this for us. Yeah. And I remember one guy come up to me, he goes, where did you guys pop up from? I said, what do you mean? He goes, last year, you know, we didn't see you once, and I've been to every event this year, and I've been in the game for 20 years, and you're every one of them. So subhanAllah, we skyrocketed. Like we were doing, we did. We were doing 4 events a weekend on average. Then we got up to the 6 and sort of 8 sites a weekend, which was huge for us. Like, you know, infrastructure and state Australia wide. But mashallah, you can do 50 sites on a single weekend. You know, like amazing.
Look, there was. I mean, I'm not sure if you classified the size. How do you determine the size?
Because you can break them up. You can put 4 sites in one.
Well, at the time, there's a lot of vendors that had the equipment but weren't utilising it. I know a lot of the shows that had a lot of equipment back then.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I think we ended a period of, prior to that, I would say it was a case of our growth was driven, and I guess we learnt a lot through our dealings with QSR businesses that approached us. So I remember as I was developing my business, I was approached, and you make relationships. And I remember putting in a pitch for the Commonwealth Games, actually, funny enough, a joint venture with I'm not sure if you remember Graham. He used to run a number of trucks, and he seemed like a nice enough guy. But he said, "Look, we probably could do this together." I knew one of the guys that was a friend of mine who was coordinating the tender process. He went and worked for Nando's, a QSR. So he went there and he sort of saw the problems they had a couple of trucks themselves, and they were trying to build their brand. They only had, I think, 20 stores at the time, and they're doing some hardships, and they had some specialized people they were paying to focus on these events.
They had those three big food vans, or 2?
Yeah, they invested some big dollars.
Top dollar, I remember.
Yeah. And they ran and they struggled because it's not a restaurant.
They had
so the biggest problem was they knew they had the systems, they had the right people, I guess, or you'd think you'd get the right people. They were paying for it, but they just weren't getting the outcomes because they were going into a different environment. And events are such a different space. It's a specialized space.
100%.
So understanding sullage and sewers and waters, and there's got limited amount of water you can have on a day, and how you disperse of that each day. You got to plan. You got to plan every step of the day, 100%. Don't you? So he saw some challenges there, and he mentioned it to the directors and said, "Look, I think it might be maybe get someone that specialises in this space to take this on." So he approached me and he said, "Look, you should have a look at this. It'd be right up your alley." And anyway, I thought, okay, I'll come down. They were in Brunswick, funny enough, at the time. They had their offices there.
The head office was there.
So it was on the way going into the G.
Street,
Yeah, just next to Pedro's.
Yeah.
End of Lagon Street. Yeah.
So I was setting up one day at the G. I thought, okay, I'll just pull over for it. I'll just go have a meeting with them. And I ran into the directors there, and lovely guys. They had a vision, they had a passion, but they had a problem. And they said, I remember at the time, he said, "Come, let's go for a drive. Well, I want you to go see these trucks." So he had a Hyundai vehicle, Asian director, old car. We drove all the way to Geelong because he had it stored in one of the farms out there, the supplier's farm, because they didn't have nowhere to store it.
They're big.
Yeah,
They're all massive.
yeah. And I know he spent so much on this thing. It's like, so anyway, we went for a drive all the way there, and just spoke the whole way. He told me a little bit about himself. I told him a little bit about what I was doing. And anyway, we got there. We see this thing. It's covered in bird dust, and but I see the structure, the fundamentals are all there. They've spent the money on it, so they just weren't getting the outcomes on one of them. And he said, "I got another two. They're in another yard. We can have a look at them another time." Anyway, moving on to the point, we looked at the opportunity. We said, "Okay, this would be good. I think I can make some changes to it, but I need you to understand. I got to run it differently. It's not so much." We want to represent the brand as best we can. That was a priority for us because that was their priority.
Yeah.
But we said we need to limit it and streamline it because I've got limited space in there. You can't be doing all these things.
They want to do everything.
Yeah. So we looked at it and we changed some things. And they said they were open to it, So anyway, I thought, okay, well, if I'm doing all this other stuff, how am I going to do this as well? And I had a good friend of mine at school. He was doing, he was in, I think, Super at the time. He was working for Mercer, I think. And he said, it just wasn't him, So I mentioned to him, I said, look, there's an opportunity here. You can come along. You can help drive that. I think it'd be good. Have a look, have a think. Because he worked with us previously as kids in the trucks. And so
this is Dean.
Dean, yeah, correct. So Dean came on board and we gave it a crack, and we learned so much from that because Nando's had the systems. They had the QSR team. They showed us all the, I guess, what our business was lacking at the time.
Yeah, it's
the direction.
amazing. You're open to that.
Yeah, so we adopted a lot of those processes within looking at what we were doing and saying, well, that doesn't work because of this reason. And discussing it with them, we had consultants because they were looking at the best outcomes for their business.
Wow.
So they're saying, yeah, well, that probably sounds a lot better than what we'll do that way, or we'll allow you to do it that way because you're dealing with this. This is why we're not making it work. So having that knowledge there and that support was
So
crucial.
you guys ended up buying those vans off them, didn't you?
Correct.
How many, with that relationship with Nando's, how long was that?
Oh, that went for, it's a good question. It went for 2000, I would say close to 15 years.
Because I think that because even when we were in the events game and when you came onto the scene, you actually put Nando's on the map.
Yeah, honestly.
Because that target audience where the concerts and the young, the 18 to 17 to
You made
19.
Nando's cool. I think like what you did through your business, and I remember saying that like a long time ago, is that Frank made Nando's cool because it was cool because every young kid who came to an event who believed, as Coca-Cola was doing, heavily marketing all those events, Coke was cool because everyone had it at a festival and they always recall it. But I think you were an amazing instigator of marketing Nando's to a realm that it never was open to. They wanted to get in.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other, like you look at how many different organizations tried to do what Nando's did, and every one of them failed because they tried to do it themselves.
Yes.
Like how many we saw.
Grill tried it.
Remember that grill truck?
Yeah.
It was underwater.
Yeah, a lot of brands have tried it, and it's difficult. It's different to just running stores
Because you know the
it's not
game.
especially exactly. And we got look, it all comes down to relationships.
Yes.
Yeah.
So relationships is something you build over time, and you invest, and they invest in you, and you get opportunities out of it. So there's all those other factors that go into it. But in relation to, I'm not sure if it was. I think there's a number of contributors that help. But you're right. I believe, and speaking to the directors actually years down the track, saying, because they went from 30 stores, 20 stores at the time, they grew to like 300 when we ended up with them.
That's right.
And they said it was a big driver, but I think it was a number of things that were happening at the same time.
Yeah.
They were driving something, they had a marketing drive, and we were pushing that. So all these mechanisms factors going into the right space, and it was hitting their demographic, and it was And you're right. And we had some great activations there, and they were supporting that. So,
Yes.
so I think it was having everyone aligned. It contributed to a good outcome.
Did that become a big portion of your business?
At one stage, it was a big part, and as I said, it helped us drive other areas. It helped us learn how to develop other parts of the business and create those processes, the procedures.
We've had those discussions about compliancing and different level. And mashallah, you were like at the forefront of really being compliant at a level that many weren't in the event game because of such a monster cash industry that it was those days. And like mashallah, you led the way in that, where the pays and the fair work factors and all that. And mashallah, like you were the instigator of that. And
yeah, I think like back then, one of the biggest things we learned was, I guess, the consistency, trying to strive for excellence. And this is some of the things that we're always striving. We always, I'm sure you've doing this
Hassan,
podcast,
this
you
is
probably come
Islam.
into this.
Hassan.
You know, we're always striving to be better than we were yesterday.
Yes.
And we kept the throttle on. We kept pushing, and we keep doing that to this day. That's why I feel like we still part of the journey is still going. We're not at a point where we say, well, we've reached this point. No, I don't think it's not a destination.
Why?
It's more of a journey.
Why?
I think we have to try, and I do as much as we can with the time we have, be as proactive as we can with the time we have in all areas, in relation to giving to charity, in relation to working, in relation to developing kids, in relation to having these opportunities. Because if we ain't pushing that hard, we don't get those opportunities where we are, I guess, reflecting someone that's on a cashier. That's a simple thing like that. They're doing a job as they're getting paid for, but they're learning so much from that situation. So if you're not pushing it and striving to do more, all these other things won't happen.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think it's part of the journey, and you want to incorporate as many people as you can into that. You know, and then you've got your own kids that come into the equation. How do I get them into this cycle and get them learning and striving and getting to the point where you want to give back? Because even if you reach a limit, I believe, that you feel that you're comfortable with, and you think, okay, I can just pull back a little bit here. If you didn't, think about how much more you could do in relation to giving back, doing for the community, in relation to donating, in relation to developing more of those people, whatever it is that drives that.
100%.
I think getting to a point where you pull back, because I've been asked that a few times, and they said, why are you doing that anymore? Why are you still doing that? I said, I'll keep doing it as long as I have a passion for it. I still enjoy it.
And it's amazing. Look, I can tell our audience there is nothing that is as challenging as the events game. Like, you know, it's absolutely draining mentally, physically. You could be on a site, like, you know, we were doing Falls Festival, we were there 4 days on site, barely sleeping 2 hours a day, you know, with the rollover staff for day and night shift, sleeping behind the marquees, you know, 12 guys sleeping in one marquee, like crazy stuff that we've done that is beyond belief. Like, you know, you think it's a lot, but how we survived that. But wallah, and I've been so privileged to be able to say we've had that effect on so many young brothers, Muslims, brothers, sisters who have worked for us that are now like developers. You know, one guy, mashallah, he's got a big development firm. He builds homes, and he says to us, man, like Fiesta, like, bro, it made me like the man that I
can
am.
do anything.
I can do anything, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because you know, and subhanAllah, I had one brother. It was an amazing story. We took away one guy to Denny Ute Master, and he slept there for 3 days at the back of the stall. You know, we set up, we have a ball with the boys, and then I remember we were going to Ballarat the week after, and there was this new kid, and that guy was his first week was at Denny. He slept, and then we're leaving in the morning, and the guy goes to him, "It's going to be hard." He goes, "I've never slept out." And he goes, "Don't worry, brother." He goes, "Last week I slept for 3 days in a van." He goes, "At least today, it's 1 day and we're sleeping in a hotel." So he was so excited that he was sleeping in a hotel now because he had such a hard time at the last one. You know what I mean? His first event. He was telling the guy, "Don't worry, it's going to be easy, bro. We're sleeping in a hotel this one." And subhanAllah, some of these kids have never slept outside their house. We'd take them away for a weekend. And, you know, we'd build relationships, we'd have a ball, you know, and it was amazing, like how many events. We'd travel.
Look, there's a certain reward, I guess. Look, when things are rolling and there's a demand, or you're at an event where you have to service the people.
Yeah.
100%.
Everyone needs to be serviced. Everyone needs to be fed. Everyone needs to be, they're wanting something then. And when you've got a team, and that's the key, having the right team. you got people that understand that and thrive over those situations. They enjoy that, and they make the most of those opportunities. And you know, when they've serviced everyone, they feel like that was amazing. What we've been able to achieve is very few can. And like
that reminds me of Falls Festival.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of feedback, Frank. Yeah, especially music like Golden Plains, Meredith, Falls. These music events. Yeah, and some of them would fall in on midnight, New Year's Eve things. Yeah. And we'd have lines, and we're the only ones servicing the public because everyone else is partying and they're all drunk, and all our staff are not. They're practicing Muslims.
Yeah.
You know, we don't drink. We're smashing it out. You know, we're working, and
some markets were closed. Some food vans were closed on the count of the the midnight count on New Year's Eve. And we are there, and the organizer called me and said, "Ahmed, like, aren't you going to celebrate?" It's like, nah, we're here to service these people. They're hungry. And she goes, that's all right, just stop and celebrate and then you can open. I said, no. So how that opened up so many gateways for us, other organisers saying, okay, we're people of our word. We're not here to party. We're here to service. We're here to have, we're having a good time anyway. And subhanAllah, people see that. And
so many Muslim youth seeing from this lens, working in those environments,
seeing the ugliness.
We're like, I never want to do this.
Yeah. I don't want to go to these kind of places.
I don't want to, which was amazing. A lot of our young youth used to work for us because their parents would be, you're taking him to a music festival for 3 days, and we're like, trust me, it's going to be the best experience. They're going to see some things. They're going to see the other lens of the event.
They don't see it from that lens. They have to be working, and they're looking at these people that are whatever they're on, and they're absolutely lost. And they think to themselves, wow. But if you go into that realm from that door, you don't see it.
No, you don't see it.
And alhamdulillah, we've had the privilege to be able to show these young kids, that lens that I think, and alhamdulillah, we
even ourselves,
you know what I mean? Subhanallah,
Yeah, you see that.
we have so many stories in the events. We can be all night talking about all these stories that have happened, at events. And was there a time that was like that where you got to a stage where you said, you know what? This is too hard. Like, me and Iba have had those situations where,
even when we told we're getting out of the game, you said, yeah, I've heard that before.
Because, and subhanAllah, like, we said that to you many times, like, we're going to get out. And it's like, we ended up getting out, subhanAllah. But was there a time that you were really close to say, you know what, this is just too much, it's too hard? Like, we've had those moments. Like, I remember we had 12 weeks worth of rain, we went backwards. Every we prepaid for how many events, and we've already prepaid all the rent on what was about. I think it was,
Melbourne's
20 events.
So fickle.
Yeah, it
and
is.
they all ran out and we're going backwards and thinking to myself, Allah Akbar, man. And is it really gonna that was one of the hardest times we had with that.
I think when Dad
Yeah.
passed away, I think we had 9 events on.
Yeah.
St Kilda Festival. We had some big contracts that weekend, and Dad passed away. And we're looking. So we had 9 events on, but one of those events Ahmed was doing, I was doing another, and my brother-in-law was doing another one. So it was all internal family. So you know what? They're not going to go to my dad's janaza. They're not. It's like, and I go, Ahmed, let's do our best anyway. So I remember sending emails to 9 of these events. St Kilda lost the plot, obviously well aware of St Kilda, and like, okay, I'll get Billy to do that.
Yeah,
he's not family member. I think out of the 9, I think 3 of them said no. It's not. Who cares?
We did, yeah.
Then we didn't end up doing them ever again. We never ended up doing those 3 events again.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
St Kilda we never ended up doing again because of that. And the other 2 was like, and everyone else said no problem. We understand your circumstance. Here's your money back. And the ones that didn't, we never ended up doing it. But we did the event. We kept our word.
Yeah.
But we never end up using it. We never end up applying for those events.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, there's always someone waiting to come in. That's the thing. So that's the case of, and there's always new applications, and there's always a rotation. We always find new
organisers.
New organisers come in. They forget about that relationship and all those hardships you've gone through.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I think in that game, man, like us getting Bendigo Easter Festival was because of we lost the organizer and another organizer who we didn't do it. Like a new girl came in and said, you got too much of a foot space, it's too big, you're taking too much of the place. How can we have you? We could keep 5 guys in here. I was like, because we're good.
Yeah.
What do you mean? That's why we got 5 sides.
We've been doing it for 8 years.
And the girl goes, no, we'll give you one side. I go, I'm not interested. Thank you. Take us out.
Yeah.
And they beg us to run the whole event. That's what happens. Is because the hardships.
Correct.
Like, nobody values you sometimes, and when you get new organisers,
and it's very specialised skills at the moment, because there's not many people in our game that have had that experience.
My favorite one, I think, was doing the show. Doing what's it called, Moomba. the guy bumping into Moomba.
Yeah.
We had a new organizer, didn't have a clue how to allocate positions.
I remember
Who was
that.
going to go in first, who was going to go
And
second.
and this guy was fresh out of uni, Frank. And I'm like, what's this guy doing?
No way we're going to fit.
And there was 9 food vendors. We had to bump in on that side of where the rides
the
were.
arrow, yeah.
I'm like, there's no way.
We're going to fit.
And I haven't bumped in. I've been there an hour. He's trying to get one truck in, Frank. And I'm like, excuse me, listen, can I take over? He goes, would you do that for me? I said, yeah, I want to get out of here. I'm going to set up.
Yeah.
Which gave me the opportunity to get the best site, really. You know what I mean? And because I'm the last one to go in because I've got to get all these guys in.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I got these 9 guys in and he's watching me in amazement. Like I've already put their cool rooms in place because this guy wanted to put trucks in without putting the infrastructure at the back yet.
Yeah,
he's
not knowing where the A-frame is
No,
goes.
you know what I mean?
No, they have, the A-frame has to be there. They're going to back it to
And
each
he's
other.
like,
All
oh,
these
thank you
little
so
things.
much. And I couldn't do this without you. And next year thinking, oh, we're guaranteed in next year. And then you organiser.
Yeah,
Organise
it all
again.
changes, isn't it?
Back to proving yourself. And
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
And I think you got to have a certain, thick skin for the events because you're right. You get those good days and you get the bad. And if you haven't got the endurance, you're not going to survive. And it can be testing at times. You're right.
What was the toughest time like you had in the game? Like, what was the toughest time? Like financially, like I'm saying, was there a situation where it was like, man,
Oh, well, COVID obviously hurt the industry completely.
oh, yeah, we were out then.
Yeah. There's many a times, but and it's a cycle. You start to see the cycles of the good years and the bad years, and people always like the good years, but they don't like to think that it's a bad year.
You prepare for the bad years, don't you?
Well, you have to prepare for those bad years.
what did
because-
you do in COVID? What made you survive that?
Well, COVID saw us, and that was the thing. I had a lot of calls from vendors as well saying, "What do we do? What do we do? How do we get by through this?" And initially, it was everyone was a bit more panicky for some reason during COVID hit. I just felt that there was a certain calm. Look, I was obviously you can't control what's happening here.
Were you at the Grand Prix?
No, I wasn't. That was the year they actually kicked me. No, we didn't do
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
No, we
Because
never
Grand
did.
Prix was the catalyst that
Yeah.
opened the Pandora box.
Correct. That was the time. Correct. Yeah. A lot of people were sort of had funds they already invested and they lost a lot of money. So
I remember one of the bread guys was telling me I went and delivered bread and then
Yeah, they want to take it back.
they want to take it back,
Oh,
please.
I
you know,
remember
it
on
was disastrous.
Facebook there was all this bread for sale
it
and
was
all this
disastrous.
meat.
It was disastrous. So it was a tough time for a lot of challenging for a lot of people. So we looked at okay, how do we evolve? Like a year prior, funny enough, we the Wear the Truck platform was run by another group, and they got to the point where they couldn't monetize it, so they weren't able to really monetize the platform and keep it going. So they came to us saying, well, for us it was a big part of the food truck wave. So going back a few steps, I guess, when we were building our own business, we got to a crossroad where we thought food trucks started evolving into the space.
But food trucks was the factor that got us out of the game.
Oh, well.
Yes.
I think we decided to get out of the game because we were going to an event and we were the marquee guys.
Yeah, but
and
they prefer a truck.
And what happened is that suddenly, every week there's a new food truck, and every man and his dog is building a food truck. And we go to an event, and it was heavily saturated with these food trucks.
Yeah.
And this is where me and Iba said, "Look, we noticed we look.
It's either with two ways we go. Either we go start building some food trucks or
we sort of
go into retail.
Or going into retail." And we decided, we looked at when we did the sort of cross analysis and the risk assessment of it, we noticed that in the day retail's the best way for us, and it's kind of like we diverted to that way, even though we kept our contracting and management sort of systems going. But the food trucks were huge, like absolute slap in the face. They came in out of nowhere.
I think one of the biggest ones at that time was coming through was what's his name? What's his name doing the burgers? What's his name?
Raf.
Raf,
Yeah.
he was-
Yeah, so there was this injection of all these new food truck spaces and, pretty good, like probably the best burgers were coming out of some of these trucks.
Yeah.
And, it was a big driver of our industry. So we looked at that and we said, okay, well, we've got a footprint in some of these major events. And I spoke to Dean at the time. I thought, what? And everyone foresees a threat coming,
yeah.
right? And everyone's worried about it. And I thought to myself, well, maybe we should be looking at this differently because all of a sudden everyone has got pressure to do better. So I said, well, this is driving us to do better, isn't it?
Yeah.
So eventually we're going to fail if we just stay our ground. So let's look at what they're doing and try to do it better. But more importantly, I looked at what they were doing. So part of that process was looking at they're serving the best burger, and like you know, it's
they were doing
the
quality
best quality burgers. They're hard to get at that price point that consumers are prepared to pay. So it was about looking at what their ingredients was, amazing ingredients. So we said, okay, well, we've got some buying power in relation to what we're purchasing at the moment. And I looked at the truck model and I thought, this guy is doing such a great job, but I know he's not making any money.
There's no money in it. That's right. We knew that.
So they're not going to survive. And a lot of our competitors at the time, when I actually spoke to them, they said they'll never survive because they knew these costs. So I went to a few industry players and I said, probably the leaders in the industry, and said, how do if we get together and start an association of some sort, or get together to embrace some of this and do some different things? I had some ideas in the back of my head. I thought maybe we can do better together. Maybe, look, with some guidance of some of these guys who've got just as much more experience than I do. And the result was, Frank, we tried that once.
That's right, yeah.
And it failed.
They all turned on each other.
So we're not prepared to do that. You go off and do what you want to do. But I believed in it. I thought, no, there's got to be something here. Something's going to change here. This is not going to stay, it's not going to go back. I don't believe, some of those people were saying they're going to eventually die.
Yeah.
I said, I don't think we're going to go back from this point. It can be something more. So I spoke to a few of those vendors and I looked at how their costs were and I thought, wow, they need some help here. We could really contribute to help to drive some of those costs down. So we said, okay, look, we'll go off and create a group of some sort that can support this.
Yeah, that was the...
it's when AMFG was established.
AMFG, that was huge.
And that was
a lot of effort in it, man.
Yeah.
You put in a full manager on that. I remember you starting that.
Oh, yeah, we started off. And firstly, I thought, okay, I've got to do a little bit of research development because I heard all these food truck waves coming from the US. So I emailed a few of the association leaders over there and said, I'm coming over there. It was winter time here. I thought I'll go down there and just have a look. And there was a food truck park location down there. I think it was in Atlanta at the time. And I'd never been there. I was like, where am I going to Atlanta for? And I thought, it's the home of Coca-Cola. All right, we'll go down there. So we went over there, had a look, and I met with some of these association leaders. And they had similar challenges to what we've had in the past here with street trading and trading on corners. And
oh, wow.
Because I looked at what we were doing here and I thought, okay, if we don't let them in, they're going to take a bit of the pie, but that's fine. But how do we make the pie bigger? So we've got to create new opportunities to drive a lot more of these vendors into our industry. And that was the driver, was to go overseas and look at those opportunities that they're doing over there to drive this new space. Because there's only so many events. Like there's only so many events out there. So we thought we need something to facilitate this growth. And I thought, okay, well, maybe we can look at what they're doing over there and replicate some of those things over here. So I met with some of and it was a great opportunity because I met all these people that I still keep in touch with to this day. LA, Matthew Gallagher, he's in the US, so he's taking care of LA, and we went to see New York and Atlanta and the food truck stuff. So we came back here and looked at some of the options, some of the leading food truck operators over there and what they were doing, trading on corners and streets and all this sort of stuff. So we sort of brought some of that back here, and then we opened up the food truck park. Was one of the locations. The first one we did was I think in Church Street in Richmond.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just had, funny enough, we just thought there's a piece of land out there. What are the rules? How can we get these trucks on there? I put an email through to council, and I spoke to a town planner at the time. He sort of gave me a little bit of help with it. And then there was a bit of hype on it. So I had Nova ring me up at the time, and they said, "Look, we'd love to support you. This sounds like such a cool thing because they're only down the road. I think they must have got wind of it, which was great. They were huge supporters. They came on as a sponsor and helped promote it as a space, and then." Which was great.
How many trucks did you have there, Frank?
At the time, we sort of invited, I think it was probably about 10 trucks, but we're doing rotations. So every day we'll give everyone a bit of a go and they'd rotate through the space. We'd create, seating, put a bit of music on and create the ambience there.
I remember you
on
did
the park.
really well with that. That was visionary because nobody, I remember, nobody was doing anything close to
No one did that.
Yeah, it was a great facilitator to, for the new vendors as they found their feet and worked out what they were doing with their business model. The biggest thing we're looking at is saying, well, where do they sit? And a lot of people don't think about when they start a new business because food trucks are a great platform to push off a new concept because you get to trial it, test it, see what different markets, different locations, different areas are doing. So you could test where your market is. You could take your truck to New South Wales 1 week and then say, no, that's no good for me there. Let me come down to Victoria, and you find a certain space and a niche product works in this area. And so you can learn so much out of that.
That's how we learned about burgies, really.
Yeah.
So the reason we chose, because as you know, we've got the Wrapped Up, Burgies, Snack Attack, 9-gram espresso, all the brands that we had that were running at the events. But we noticed that the burgers were going crazy. And so Burgies was our event brand. And then we said, you know what? Crazy not to do that. And so
many have done it. Paella.
Yeah.
Many have done it.
And that's why it gave us the ability to really test that product out there in the market. And it was so well received. Like it'd be crazy not to do it in the retail.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
That's
So
what
you
drove
could
Burgies for the retail world, really.
awesome, yeah, and that's where you drive off, and you sort of try different markets with your event in the truck, and so yeah, a lot of these people, and for us, it was a case of just as we progressed from that point, people don't really do create a bit of a business plan before they start, and I always recommend when they come to us, because from that we got like 200 or 300 members actually that just come up and said, we want to be part of this now, we want to be part of AMFG and what it can do. We want to drive our costs down. We want to do events and other things that you could offer.
And mashallah, you got thousands of currently like people that are prescribed to the
not so much thousands. We've got a database of that. We've been a bit more selective because, like, I think as the years have progressed, like I said, I'm very conscious of the fact of what's your objective, what do you want to do, who.
How many members do you have now, Fahim?
I would say it's through COVID when COVID hit. We said, look, we don't want to take any more subscription. Look, how can these people pay for subscription?
Yeah,
so I said to the guys, we're not charging anyone anymore. Let's just waive the subscription. And my focus was move towards the app of, I guess, who came on to give them the tools to evolve over that period where they could take orders online and have a location. And those were some of the things we were testing and learning and it was great learnings for myself.
Because in reality, you're a technology company at the same time. Actually, you invested so much in technology into that app. And really branching it out to all these food truck.
I think as a part of us, that's always the innovation piece that's always driving to the next thing. You can't stay still. You need to constantly look at what's next because as soon as you stop, you're going to fall back. Yeah. So I think it's a case of always, pushing for that excellence within your business and seeing what else you can adopt. And the path takes you sometimes in different directions. You got to be cautious that you're not becoming something different because so easily to go down a certain path. But I guess through COVID, that was the driver because there was all these other paths that pulled up. Yeah, events stopped. So we thought, okay, well, this is a perfect opportunity. We've already done so much work on it. Now we can start to launch some of these things and start to give the guys another tool to trade through these tough times. If that's all we can do, well, that's what we'll do. So, that was it was a good opportunity. And then post that, obviously, like I said, we didn't want to charge vendors for subscription. We moved back into that now, obviously, post COVID. And the take-ups come back again. So it's
amazing.
So it's good to see. And there's like what we've found is that there's always new people coming into the space.
There's always, there's a lot of people going in and out. Like we knew, we go into an event and some of these shiftive organisers that organise events that we'd go to, and he'd oversaturate the event. And I remember him telling me this. He goes, "There's a full born every day." And all he wanted to bring in is the rip the vendors. You know what I mean? We did that event, and I remember him saying that to me.
Yeah, just like to saturate it.
All he wanted is saturate the event and rip whoever vendor can come in because there's always going to be somebody who's going to try my event.
Correct.
You know what I mean? But that changed anyway. Because
that's evolved. And that's something
people started communicating about what a good event and what's a bad event. And
I think it's I think both sides have got a responsibility in relation to everyone working to the common cause because, like you said, they need to get paid for that, right? And look, we've been trying to educate vendors. Look, you've got to do the right thing by these people, but at the same time, they need to do the right thing by you.
Exactly.
So, and you're right. It's like the people don't have maybe the knowledge. So, like yourselves, we found ourselves in a position where we're telling people we're doing someone else's job for them. Like you become the event organizer in trying to guide them 100%. So they don't fall into that path. Yeah. And I advise a lot of vendors to say, ask some trigger questions before you go to an event to see what the mindset is of the organizer. Because funny enough, I had this happen to me, and they said it was an event, and they said we're doing this new event. It's going to be over here, and we're going to put this many trucks in. And I said, how many people are you getting at this event? And there's 5,000 people, 3,000 people, whatever the number was. And the ratio was wrong. So there's no formula. They're not working on any formula. So I said to them, I think you might have a problem. And she said, why? I said, I think you're over catering the event. So what's the outcome will be is people will come there, they'll either drop off halfway through the event or they'll lose a lot of money at the end of it because you don't need them. So sometimes perception, it could be, I want to give as much variety as possible.
That's what they say.
So I understand they want to do that, but there needs to be an element of balance because it comes at a cost.
That's right.
So I suggested to them, maybe you look at a general truck or someone that can do multiple things out of one outlet because then they're not losing as much. So you know, I guess, and some people take that on, some people don't. And like you said, there were some people that said, well, that's the game we're in.
That's how we got it. That's how we got into Around the Bay in a Day. The way we got the contract for Around the Bay in a Day, we've been doing it for how many years? And the new organizer came, and it was always 4 to 5 vendors we used to do always, and it was just a hit in the morning and a hit for lunch because they'd come and they'd go. You had 2 quick hits, and subhanallah, came with an event organizer. She was doing a big concert as part of it, and she's got the bands and all this stuff. And then suddenly she goes, I'm going to put in 20 people. We said, look, count us out. That's not for us. And remember, we said, we don't want to do it, this, that. And you can imagine, nobody made money. And everyone's going, why did you get out? You've been doing this for how many years? Nobody had the opportunity to get into this event. Now we all came in and everyone's calling us, are we going to get busy? SubhanAllah. They called Eva, called V. And I said, brother, it's going to come in 1 o'clock. They all come back. You'll get here for 1 hour and it's done. And that's it. And I go, be prepared. And everyone's sending people home and this, that. And SubhanAllah, the year after that, they put the applications out. Nobody applied. And then we contacted them and said, listen, we're more than happy to manage the event for you. Let us manage the whole concept. They said, would you? And then that was, I think, the first time we dealt with City of Melbourne and their headaches and the grass.
There's a number of factors in there. Like you're saying, it could be an event and it's a really good year. The next year it's rain and it's bad. And it's not the organiser's fault at the same time. They can't control the weather, and that's the game we're in. So it may not be their fault totally. And then you see the next year comes back to that. So you only realise that once you've done a cycle. And not many people are prepared to do a cycle because it depends what part of the cycle you're in
as well.
You know, so and that's where you find the people that have lived through it and the ones that probably don't because you know they got a different path, or they just are not prepared to sort of go through that.
Write it out.
Yeah. It's not an easy game, but it can be quite rewarding. Without a doubt, I'm grateful for all it's done for us.
I'm so well travelled because of the event game. Like we've gone. You know, you can like nobody can imagine. We've done the 4-wheel drive championships. We had to get our bloody food van pushed by 4 tractors and go up to some hill and we were sleeping while.
So it is amazing.
Yeah, like we see things that you've never seen in your life, 100%. Like sites you've never seen. You know. Places, Tassie, Canberra. We're traveling, every weekend. I sort of missed that on the way too because we've been out of the game now for how many years? About 7 years now, 6 years. Not out completely, but like out of every weekend. Alhamdulillah, we're still managing events. Some really good contracts. Alhamdulillah, we're very blessed to do that.
Alhamdulillah. But
subhanallah, it's different when you go to Denny and
because
also you build a relationship with all the vendors. Like every year we'd go to Denny and we know that Peter's going to be there and this person, and you sit down and you have dinner together and they'll bring out to you and we become a family, right. We've built so many families through the event games, haven't we?
Oh, 100%. And it becomes that. Everyone's sort of looking out for each other and you want to maintain that, you know what I mean? And it can be competitive, but at the same time it can be like a lot of the times when guys have got stuck on the side of the road and someone would pull over, they're going to the same job. So knowing if they got there sooner, and this is a test. I've had both sides of that, where they're racing to get back to the next because they're like almost doing a run, and they're racing to get the next, and they see someone pull up with a blown tire or something, and they would drive past.
Yes. That's
but there'd be some that would pull over
and help exactly,
and you see that, and these are the moments that you really can connect with and understand that
100%.
We owe him one.
And so for example, one of our
and it shows the true character and the true.
100%. At one of our events, we had some heavy applications on it when we did the vendors. The first thing I did is, Frank, this guy I've never dealt with, bro. Can you tell me how good this guy is? Bro, stay away from him.
Well, I mean,
these guys, and then I said to him, Frank, this guy's amazing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, it's that relationship. Like, you've dealt with him, I haven't, and everyone.
And those things have happened to like everyone within the space. So people fail to understand that when they, I guess, on an event, some people can be rude to the organizer, they can be difficult.
Yes.
It becomes about them, and they don't understand they should be trying to build a relationship. Because that particular event is one event, but that organizer also communicates, just like the food truck community communicates, with probably a handful of other event organizers. And they say, okay, well, that's great. I noticed you had this really cool truck at your event. Doesn't matter who you are. And they say, yes, I did. It was good to have them there at the start, and then this is what happened. So all of a sudden, you've just ruled yourself out of 5 other events.
Exactly.
And that's why relationships. It's all about those relationships. And it doesn't work your way. Well,
Your network is your net worth. I keep on saying that, guys. Your network is your net worth. Build as many bridges as possible. Well, I think we didn't really dig deep into you. Alhamdulillah, I think we dug a lot into the industry, because mashallah, we're so connected into that industry. But I'd really just like to finish off maybe with just some quick questions about yourself and like, what do you truly believe success is? What does success mean to you in your perspective? And so inshallah, we'll share that with our audience.
Yeah, I guess it can mean a lot of things, isn't it? Success. And people see success in their kids. People see success in, their business. I think it's a part of success is that I realized this, I guess, as more and more events and we got busier, and I thought, what is success to me? It's more about the journey for me, because it's about the destination is one thing, because everyone's striving for a destination and they're thinking, if I get to that point, I'm going to be super successful. Everything's going to be right. I can buy that sports car. It's going to be great. But the reality is the fruits are in that journey. And the journey of all, like we've been talking about, we've been basically talking about what we got out of the moments that we had.
It's amazing moments.
So every moment was a success, because you've had a different encounter and you've had a different opportunity to meet someone new, and you've had an opportunity to contribute to someone that's led to something else. So I think it's a number of things. I don't think you can point.
Okay, let me break it down to you. What is the proudest moment you've ever had in your life?
To be honest, it's a good question. It's a tough one. Now, obviously, as time goes on, my commitment is looking at what the next wave of my kids and how they're going to develop, and as you guys are so committed to your boys and you want the best for them. And I remember taking my son, I've always said to him, my oldest, you need to, think about what you're doing in your life now, because a lot of kids don't do that. They just go along thinking things are going to happen. And I keep reminding him, saying, don't worry about what business we're doing. It's not, you got to create what you think is right for you. So think about it. So anyway, I said, but today we're going on funny enough, post-COVID, we started doing some more events, and I was actually working at a particular music festival, and he had never been in that environment. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take him along. Wife goes, are you sure? He's only 16. I said, I'm going to take him along. So anyway, as we're driving there, I said to him, and mind you, I haven't done a lot of events myself at music. It's one of the years since I've done a music event like of that scale where I've been there. But we went there, and it was actually quite fun. And I said to him, well, this project, like right now, you've got to think about what you're going to do in your life. But for this week, you're the head of this bubble tea store. You're running this thing. You're the leader. You're going to be looking after everyone that's there. So you're going to be driving it. If you're not on, you may fail, you may not. But you've got that responsibility today.
Wow.
So let's see how it goes. So anyway, he goes in there and he's got it down pat. This guy's he's looking at, I got that right, the temperatures, the measurements, everything's going quite good. All day long he's going. And it's been quite busy, which is great. And I said, because I've always said to him, you got to make sure that your team has a rest before you go. You can't have a break before all your team has had the break.
The last man.
You're the last man, because you're responsible for everything. Yeah, I'm not going to have my break. It's all happening. So he sends everyone on break. He comes to his break. And I said, okay, where's he going to go now? This is a music festival, So he only had a short window. And he said, I'm just going to shoot up for my break. And I went over, actually happened to go have a look, see where he was. And he wasn't there. He said, no, he's gone for his break. So I started looking around. It was dark. The sun was just setting. It was dark. And I look at behind the back of house area, and there's an ambulance there. I thought, maybe he's hurt or something like that there. Anyway, he had put down a piece of cardboard and he started praying.
Allah.
And I thought, I haven't really seen him like in that capacity. This event, from all the things you could have elected to do, there was plenty of people around in shorts and miniskirts and had a look around. That's what he did.
Allah.
So that was one of the proudest moments for me.
That's an amazing story.
Mashallah, we could testify the amazing boys. You had him at Bendigo Easter.
But not like that. He had him at the NAF get together. But
mashallah,
that was a real proud moment for me, because watching your boys, and I walked into the truck with you, and I could see them just embracing.
I try to do stuff like those sort of functions and those charity events, whatever we do. I try to get the boys involved and get the hands doing that.
And mashallah, we've got to give you credit.
Allah bless you.
We've got to give you credit for all the support you have given to the leadership retreat and the family fun days that we do through the Australia Foundation. Alhamdulillah. So
I think you guys do an amazing job with that.
bless
It's
you.
full credit to you for doing that. And
Alhamdulillah, we try our best
Alhamdulillah.
and leave the rest, as they say.
Allah Kareem. Alhamdulillah. I think, is there anything that you want to add about you that I think maybe our viewers would really sort of appreciate through your game, you know?
I just think, we've touched on a lot of points. Spoken a lot. I think everyone just be, as I said, it's that. I've always said to the guys, we've got to try be that 5%. Even my boys, like 95% of people just do enough. It's the 5 to 10% that are actually doing more and achieving more in life. So
100%.
where do you want to be? So we're always striving to be that. And to be that, you've got to be pushing yourself, working harder than everyone else. Yeah. You know, if you're doing 8 hours these days, like in this competitive world we're all living in, you are going to do enough to survive. Yeah. That's the reality.
100%.
If you want more than that, and that's all fine. If that's what you want, just make that decision and then live by that. Yeah. But if you want more out of life, you want to be able to contribute more, you want to be able to, the position that you guys are in now, being able to do these podcasts, have that time to do that or sacrifice that time, you need to do more earlier in life. To get to that point.
Great advice.
And just drive yourself. Always strive to be better than what you were. Every element, and I always said to the guys, every part of our business, we've got to strive to be just 5% better. If you're 1 or 2% better in every part, it's going to get the result. It's a bit of, and even if you work at something, you think I'm not really getting noticed for what I'm doing. It's all those little things that add up 100%. To a big push at the end when you see, wow, that's what we've done. So I think it's nothing comes easy, and it's all hard work, and you got to be prepared to put in. So if you're willing to do it, I think you'll get the outcomes. And if your intentions are right, you probably get more than others or whatever it is. But
hell, it's all rizq. As I say, subhanAllah, it's all rizq.
Yeah, correct.
Do your best, and you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards with extra. You know, and if you think you are giving, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most giving. You know?
We've always said that, and like subhanAllah, the only faith on the face of this earth that speaks about rizq or predestined your wealth is Islam, and our community worries about it so much, and I don't understand why. It's there. If Frank's meant to have $3 million and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that to test him with, whatever he does with it, if he's going to do khair or any khair, it's your test. Why are we so concerned about the dollar where you know it's predestined for you? You just do your best and leave the rest.
That's right.
Allahumma barik. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Frankie, for coming
really
down.
Appreciate coming down. And we know you wouldn't do this for anybody. With the love we have as brothers.
Thank you for having me.
22 years of an amazing relationship we've had in the event game, and I want to say publicly, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you from our hearts. You have been like a mentor to us as well.
Mentors.
We've looked up to you, in the game. Mashallah, whenever we've reached out to you, since we first came to this game, you've never said no to us, and you've helped us tremendously. You've got us into games that we've never been in, and may Allah bless you. And you are in our dua, and may Allah bless you and make you, the most successful in everything that you do in your family and your sons as well, because we love them to death as well.
Thank you. I appreciate
I just want to touch base on that, because I remember Dean calling me just recently. I think you were doing the Australian Open. He asked me for some machines, and he goes, let me know what you. I said, mate, your family. I said, I don't know about you, Dean. Frankie hasn't told you, but your family, we don't charge family. He goes, you really? Allah protect you, Frankie.
And we appreciate all your help. Obviously, over the years, you guys have helped out as well. Just I don't see like thank you so much for your kind words, but I never saw it as that. I think you guys we've been good friends, and I'm grateful for meeting you actually. And I hope this contributes to something bigger and better, and
inshallah,
and helps anyone it may connect with.
Thanks, Frankie.
Thank you very much. And please, I'd remind our viewers, please, it's amazing. Alhamdulillah, we're reaching international heights in 14 episodes, or 15 episodes, and reaching such amazing. We just love to do more for you guys, and for us to do more, we do need you to do that. The subscribe button and follow button, inshallah. That's all we ask of you. And if you can do that for us, we'd really appreciate it. We'll be working very, very hard for you guys to get more amazing brothers and sisters who have achieved amazing things within our community and the wider world, inshallah, and getting international soon, inshallah. So jazakumullah khair, and thank you for listening. We look forward to providing another podcast next week. Assalamu alaikum.